Hello, welcome to Board with Paint. Today we're going to be comparing the 1989 Milton Bradley version of HeroQuest with the 2021 version just released from Avalon Hill. Here we have the original HeroQuest game from 1989, and over here we have the 2021 reprint. You can see the artwork on both are very similar. They drew inspiration from the original, obviously. You have the wizard and this warrior placed in the same location. Over here you have the sorcerer. The dwarf and the elf are generally in the same locations. You can see the new box is not quite as long as the original, but it is a little wider. It's also thicker. Let me show you the relative thicknesses. It's about twice as thick, maybe a little more. But the 2021 version should fit better on your kind of standard IKEA shelf. Let's crack this open and take a look at what's inside. The original had plastic and cardboard furniture that required assembly, so the directions are here on the inside of the box cover. I'll just grab the rest of this stuff as it comes up. Here's the original rule book. And I'll grab the 2021 rulebook. And as you can see, they have very similar art style, but obviously the 2021 version is in full color, whereas the original is in black and white. Let's take a look at the inside. I'm not going to do a page-by-page analysis, but we'll take a look at a few pages. Having already gone through the new rulebook, I can say that I don't believe they've made any changes to the underlying gameplay. It looks pretty much the same, even including the confusing rule about being able to search for secret doors within a pit trap. We'll look at the Game Master's screen next. There's the original and the new version, which has sort of a darker artwork, but it's still generally the same content. All the monsters are present, they're in the same general locations. If we flip it over, this is going to contain tables for the Game Master to be able to play the game. That includes the statistics for all the monsters and some common rules for movement and turn order, stuff like that. Everything looks like it's in the exact same location as the original. Moving on to the quest book. Again, similar artwork on the front. Opening them up, they have what looks to be word for word exact copy of the same story text, so it appears the campaign is going to be the same for the 2021 version as it was in the original. Flipping over to the first quest, we'll take a look at this. And it looks here that the map layout is the same, monsters are in the same locations. The flavor text for the quest is the same. I don't believe they've made any changes here. Flipping through here to the back, the new version also includes a blank map and some key and rules for creating your own custom quests. Next up is this box insert. This is from the original version. We got the armory, which goes over a bunch of the equipment that you can purchase between quests. It also provides a key to various tiles and things. The 2021 version does not have this. They instead are using an equipment deck where each piece of equipment is on its own card. So I'll pull a couple of those out and we'll see. So looking at the battle axe here, it looks like it's exactly the same price, same description for the most part, same stats. So instead of using this card insert, you'll be using the equipment deck of cards in the 2021 version. I think that is probably an improvement over having kind of a common reference. Now we'll pull out the board. I already have the 2021 board left out on the table, but this is the original, so we'll open this up and compare them. So first impressions here, it is almost identical. The new board is a little bit bigger. The squares are a little bigger, but not significantly so. The colors are generally the same. The rooms are all the same size and in the same location. The floor tiles are very close to looking the same. The colors are definitely brighter on the 2021 version, but I think they're more rich in the original, even though they're a little darker. That might just be from the age of the game. One big difference is there's smooth edges on the walls in the 2021 version. In the original, they just sort of put white lines around everything. Another difference here is how the boards fold up. The original just folds in half, while the 2021 version folds up into quarters. So what you have is the original board is a smaller overall board but folds up larger, and the new version is a larger board but folds up smaller. So I think that's definitely an improvement. Moving on, let's take a look at the character sheets. I'll pull some of the original ones out, and comparing with the new version, they look almost identical. The colors and locations of everything are pretty much the same. The 2021 version is slightly larger, but the biggest difference here, I think, is in the number of character sheets that you get in each version. The original version here, obviously I've used some of them over the years, but you can see how much there originally are. Compared to the 2021 version, you get tons and tons of them, so way more on the new version. Now I'll show the monster cards from the original side by side with the 2021 version. We'll start with the Goblin. You can see here the cards in the 2021 release are somewhat bigger than the original. Obviously we have an updated graphic design and art style, which is a little bit more dynamic. The original art style was very no frills, but it got the job done. The monster stats here are identical with the original. Now we'll take a look at the orcs. On the right we have the 2021 version and the original on the left. Here's a comparison of the skeletons. I appreciate that they kept the scythe weapon. I really enjoy that weapon on the skeletons. Here's a look at the zombie. Now, one thing to note, I really miss the big cleaver weapon that the zombies had in the original. I really liked that. I thought it was menacing and very fitting. I'm not crazy about the new design for the zombie here. Now let's take a look at the mummy. Not too much to say here. Again, the stats are the same. Next, we'll take a look at a monster that's exclusive to the original, the femur. The 2021 version does not have this. Instead, we get the Abomination, which has the exact same stats as the femur. It's just a different character model. I think I prefer the Abomination. I always thought of the femur as sort of an overpowered orc. So I think this change is for the better. Next, we'll take a look at a comparison between the original and new gargoyle. The last monster I couldn't find the card for in my original copy of the game, the Chaos Warrior. The 2021 version of HeroQuest actually doesn't have this. They have Dread Warrior, which is an equivalent heavily armored humanoid with the same stats. I believe it's due to licensing issues with Games Workshop that the new version was not able to use the Chaos Warrior, and I think they eliminated the word chaos entirely from both the spells and some of the other things, and replaced it with the word dread. Moving on to look at the doors. In the original game, they were cardboard and were attached on these big plastic bases like so. You had open and closed versions of them. Here's an open version. So when you open the door, you just replace them. The 2021 version, however, has fully sculpted plastic doors. I think this is an obvious improvement over the original here. Next, we'll take a look at some of the furniture, starting with the table. Okay, this is the table from the 1989 version. It's cardboard with plastic sides. Again, the 2021 version is a fully sculpted plastic model. It's slightly smaller, but it's nice and chunky. It does share a very similar style to the original. So they kept the aesthetic, but they went with a higher quality piece. Here's the weapons rack. Both versions, they are very similar. The original one is on the right. They're close enough that I can see how you could get them mixed up. Here's the torture rack from the original game, and the gray one is from the 2021 version. I think the design is a lot nicer in the 2021 version. There's a bottom piece here of cardboard that is not attached. It's probably in this box somewhere. Here's a look at the sarcophagus. The one on the right is from the original. The one on the left from the 2021 version. Again, it's a little bit smaller like the other pieces of furniture. The level of detail is about the same, and of course the new one opens up, which is pretty cool. The original does not open up. Again, the original has a cardboard base. They have a similar look and feel though. Now for the bookcases, the original was a cardboard case with a plastic top, and the 2021 version's fully sculpted. You have the individual books in there. The original had the printed books, which was nice and actually looks a lot more dense than the 2021 version. Here's the cabinet. It's a similar design to the bookcase. Again, the fully plastic one is from the 2021 version. Similar backs. What you have in the original were these skulls and rats that went on top of the pieces of furniture. I think you kind of had carte blanche as to where you put those, but it reminds me of the rat that came with the 2021 version. Here's one of them. Here's the 1989 alchemy table, and the one on the left is the new one. This one has the scales sculpted onto the miniature itself. For the original, it was a separate piece you had to put on, and it would just get knocked off very easily every time you used it. So I think this is definitely a better design. Here's the spell table with the spell book on it from the original. One on the left is the 2021 version. They're very close in design. They have the open books on them. You get the candles. One difference is the original, I don't know if you can see this, there are words sculpted into the book in the 1989 version, whereas the pages on the 2021 version are completely smooth. Here's the throne from the original. I never really liked the design of this. It's a piece of cardboard sandwiched between two hunks of plastic. It just never really looked that nice to me. Of course, the new and improved version is fully sculpted in plastic. The design, for the most part, is the same, though. There are a few treasure chests in both sets. The treasure chest, just like the throne, is cardboard sandwiched between plastic, and the updated version gives you a fully sculpted treasure chest. And the last piece of furniture is the fireplace. You have a plastic base in the original with a cardboard cutout for the top, has this neat portrait on top of the king or whoever. And then we have the fully sculpted 2021 fireplace. Similar general design. They give you the smooth frame at the top that I guess you could paint as a mirror, or you could use a custom decal, or try to recreate the picture of the king by freehanding it. I'll probably be doing a painting video on HeroQuest, so let me know in the comments how you would like me to paint this. Moving on, let's look at a comparison of the cardboard tiles that came with both sets. This is the tile sheet that came with the 2021 version, and I'll pull out some tiles from the original so we can compare what they look like.
So here's the stair tile from the original compared with the tile sheet from the 2021 version. Same general look, it's a little bit bigger to fit the new board size, single-sided, whereas the 2021 version is double-sided. You get an alternate stairwell there. Then you have the sort of generic blocks to block off corridors and things. Almost the same design in the new version. You get skulls for tracking damage on monsters. They went with a very similar look in the 2021 version. This is the pit trap. Looking at the new version, almost exactly the same color and design. Falling blocks. Again, they definitely took its inspiration, but they did update the artwork on these. Secret doors, again, close to the original. I'm gonna pop one of these out of the new version so we can look at the tiles side by side, compare thicknesses. As far as cardboard thickness, they went a tiny bit thicker in the new version, but not much. I feel like they missed an opportunity to sort of improve the quality a bit. The new version has rounded corners, whereas the original has the sharp corners. So, you know, you're less likely to cut yourself on these, I guess. Now let's look at the hero cards. In the original, you got these extra large cards to represent your character. In the 2021 version, you get a standard size card. The information on it is basically the same. You have the same stats. Artwork is somewhat similar. You can tell it's the same character. They are double-sided, but on the back of the 2021 card, you get the flavor text that's on the front of the original card, and on the back of the original version you got a reference card. That in the 2021 version is a separate card that you'll give out to each player, so they'll have that in front of you. Has a HeroQuest back. It's about the same information. I think 2021 version has a little more detail on it. Here's the Barbarian, the large original card and the new one. Again, same stats, similar flavor text. Here's the Dwarf. They kept the same dark skin tone that they had in the original, but again, the stats are the same, flavor text is the same. Now here's one of the biggest differences between the two games. Here's the original elf, and here's the 2021 elf. You can see they changed the gender to female, and they gave the elf character a different outfit, which I think looks way better than the original did. If you were a Mythic tier backer, you would get the male version of the elf as well. Here's that card for comparison. Just as an aside, with the Mythic tier alternative sculpts and alternative artwork for the characters, I think they missed an opportunity to maybe do a little bit more to differentiate the two characters. They're in the same pose, they have roughly the same outfit. I think if they'd have done a little bit to make them unique, it would have been a nice change. But I can see the point of making sure that you know that they are technically the same character. Now let's take a look at some of the miniatures, starting with the gargoyle. Here's the original one. My wings are a little bit broken here in the back. And here's the 2021 version. I think I actually prefer the original just because he has this sort of Lord of the Rings Balrog look to him. He's got sort of the flaming sword and the whip. I always thought that was a very cool pose. The texture on the wings on the new one are much more defined than they are. The new version looks like it's made of stone, whereas I think the original looks more like I said, a Balrog. Here are some of the orc sculpts from the original. Whoops. We've got one with sort of the flail, and we've got one with a cleaver. I think this was my favorite one with the cleaver. There's also an orc with a sword, nice curved sword, and then there was an orc with a larger sword. Here's one of the sculpts from the 2021 version. He's got sort of a big thick sword. It's a little bit warped. We'll have to fix that. This next orc also has a sword. Looks like it's one of those designs from the Lord of the Rings movie trilogy. The hooks at the end of the blade. Next is a female orc with a large mace. And the last model in the 2021 version is an orc with an axe. Here's a couple of them side by side. The orcs in the 2021 version seem to be a little more brutish. They look bigger, they look stronger. The ones from the original were smaller, they're almost like big goblins. The poses of the orcs are more varied in the 2021 version as well. The original had the same orc model, just holding different weapons above their head. Here's the mace orc and the flail orc, just as a comparison of, I guess, what would be equivalent. The original version had this orc with a cleaver. I kind of missed that. I really like that weapon on both the orcs and the zombies in the 1989 version. So that's definitely missed in the 2021 version. Next, we'll take a look at the goblins. Here's a goblin from the original with an axe and with a sword. And there's also one with a large sword. I think this was used for kind of boss characters in some of the scenarios. Gathering up the models from the 2021 version. This one's got kind of a broad-bladed cleaver. I really like the dynamic pose, like he's running through the corridor. The original ones, they're just kind of static. Here's a goblin with a small knife, kind of comparing him to the one with the sword from the original. And we've got this one with two little knives. As I mentioned before, the original HeroQuest had this character, the Femir. He's kind of a one-eyed orc with a sort of ball on the end of his tail. This got replaced in the 2021 version with the Abomination, who's a massive miniature in comparison. This thing is just big, even compared to the orcs in the same version of the game. You can see these miniatures are very big. I think that's very awesome. Definitely more menacing than the original version's character. Next up, we'll take a look at, this was the Chaos Warlock in the original version. And we have the Dread Sorcerer, I believe this is called, in 2021. I like the look of the new one better. Looks more like an undead spellcaster, like a lich from D&D. He has the staff. I think it's a less generic look. The original HeroQuest one looked a lot like Skeletor from He-Man. Here's the Chaos Warrior from the original HeroQuest. I always like these guys. Obviously, as I mentioned before, the 2021 version did away with the word chaos and replaced it with dread, so here we have the Dread Warrior. I like that this one has the cape, it has the shield, looks more ready for battle as opposed to just sort of menacing you when you walk into the room. And of course, I like the mace. It reminds me of the Witch King from Return of the King in the Lord of the Rings movies, that gigantic weapon he had. Moving on, let's look at some of the undead. Here's the zombie model from the original HeroQuest. The cleaver's the big thing here that I think is missing from the new version. I'm really not too crazy about the zombie model in the new version. He just kind of is a guy with a shield and a sword. I don't really get a zombie vibe from him. I think I prefer the original. If you back the mythic tier, you do get this alternate sculpt for the zombie with a knife here. I don't know that this is really much better. I don't really like the idea of a zombie with a shield, so I think this model is probably a little better, but definitely a step down from the original. Here's a look at the skeleton from the original game. And then a look at the skeleton from the updated 2021 version. They kept the same weapon. I always loved the scythe. Thought it was a very interesting, unique weapon. You don't see that a whole lot, especially at the time in fantasy games. I like that the skeleton in the new version has armor on. He's not just a naked skeleton, so I think this is an improvement. I still like the original, but I have a slight preference for the new one. Here's a quick look at the alternate sculpt from the mythic tier with the sword and shield skeleton. I also like this one, even though it doesn't have the scythe, but I do like that variety that it gives you. And here's a quick look at all three. Here's the mummy from the 1989 version. Pretty simple design here, a little bit of exposed skin. And then we have the updated 2021 version of the mummy. I don't know that there's much to say here. I do like the fact that he's got his arm out, very much sort of a universal horror movie monster look, more so than the original. I think I have a slight preference for the 2021 version. Now we'll look at the hero miniatures, starting with the dwarf. Here he's just kind of standing here leaning on his axe. I didn't dislike this model, but I think the new one here, the 2021 version of the dwarf, where he's actually holding his axe in a ready position, I think that's a lot more dynamic of a pose, and I definitely prefer this. Obviously the larger size of miniature helps too, both for ease of painting and picking the character out on the board. Here's my very poorly painted barbarian from the original game. You can see the sword broke off him at some point. I obviously didn't know how to paint skin tone. The pose on the new barbarian is pretty much the same. He's got the sword in the same position. Not much different. Next up, we have the wizard. This is the original wizard from 1989 and the 2021 version. You can see the pose is very similar. The staff has this half moon on it. A little more interesting in my opinion. Other than that, their pose is pretty much identical. And finally, the elf. Here's the original sculpt. And in the 2021 version, we have sort of the biggest difference between these two. Aside from the fact that they replaced this with a female elf, they also changed the outfit and pose significantly. The new elf has a cape, is actually wearing armor, looks more like what you would expect an elf to look like. I definitely prefer the 2021 version. If you have the mythic tier, you'll also get this alternative sculpt, which is a male version of the elf. It's pretty much the same pose and clothing as the female elf. Now we'll take a look at the dice. The big difference here is that in the original game, the dice were made of wood, whereas in the 2021 version, they are plastic, just what you would expect a die material to be made out of. Here's the movement die. This has the gold pips, which did not carry over to the 2021 version. You can see this one was gotten a hold of by a dog at some point who chewed it up. So these are the dice from the original game. And then for comparison, here's the 2021 dice. They're a little bit bigger. Again, we have the white pips on the movement die. I would have liked to see the gold again. If we look at the attack dice, you have the defense icon for the heroes, along with a defense icon for the monsters. Here's a comparison of the skulls from the original and the 2021 version. Then the hero defense die, it's very faded on the original. A different design. Let me see if I have a better one in here. Here's the best one I could find. It's not really much better, but they did do a different icon. Then we'll look at the die for the monster defense. Very similar design. The original, if you flipped it upside down, you could make it look like a rabbit, which I always thought was funny. You don't really get that on the new one. And finally, we'll look at the cards. So in the original game, we had the 4 elemental spell cards: earth, fire, air, and water. You get the same cards in the 2021 version. They have different artwork on the back. Here's a look at the water cards. The spells themselves are identical, but they did update the artwork. So I'll show you them. Here's the Veil of Mist. The original is on the left. You can see they did a more minimalistic graphic design. In the 2021 version, they actually gave some texture to the background and added a dark border around the cards. Text is the same though. Here's Sleep. The artwork is similar. They drew inspiration from the original, clearly. Here's Water of Healing. You still have sort of the dragon head fountain, just a different view of it. Here are the air spells. I think I actually prefer the original, which is on the left, because the 2021 version looks a little bit like water to me. I don't get really an air vibe from it. Looking at the individual spells, here's the Genie spell. Again, 1989 is on the left. Here's Tempest. This is brand new artwork for the 2021 version. And Swift Wind. Identical rule text again. Fire spells are next. Have the original and the 2021 version. The Courage spell. Ball of Flame. This is certainly inspired from the original. Fire of Wrath. This appears to be a new design. Here are the Earth spells. This is Heal Body. They use the same general art design for this. Someone getting hit by an arrow. Next we have Pass Through Rock. And Rock Skin. Definite improvement in the artwork here. I think the original looks like some kind of pro wrestler. Now once again, the original game had Chaos spells, where the new version of the game has Dread spells. So they renamed Chaos to Dread again here. We'll take a look at these individually. Here's Tempest. Summon Undead. Summon Orcs. Next is the Sleep spell. Again, they inspired their artwork from the original. Okay, Rust is next, followed by Lightning Bolt, Firestorm, Fear. This is kind of fun. In the original version, it's like, I'm seeing something that scares me. And then the new version's like, here's what I'm seeing. Maybe that's a little Easter egg. Next, we'll look at Escape and Command. Here's another one where they removed Chaos. We have Cloud of Chaos from the original and Cloud of Dread from the 2021 version. And finally, we have Ball of Flame. Next, we'll go through the treasure cards. Here's the back of the treasure cards from the original, and here's the 2021 version. And we'll look at the individual cards here. Here's the Wandering Monster card. Potion of Healing. This artwork's very close to the original. Jewels, or should I say Jewels? Here we have Gem. Truly outrageous. And the Heroic Brew. Again, they mimicked the original art here. Potion of Defense. Maybe we could look into getting a few of these for the Steelers this year. Another very exciting one. Gold! Next up is Hazard. Hazard! Interesting that the new version shows spikes, but the card text doesn't mention spikes at all. Here we have another one. This is the Arrow Trap version. Feel like they missed an opportunity to put the arrow in the knee. And the last treasure card to look at is the Potion of Strength. Some of these are duplicated, so this isn't every single card, obviously. Now we'll look at the artifact cards. Here are the 1989 card backs. The expansions actually had artifact cards that were smaller that you had to actually cut out of the manual. I think these are from Keller's Keep from the original. Here's the card back compared with the 2021 version. And now looking at the cards, here is the Spirit Blade, the Talisman of Lore, the Wizard's Cloak, the Spell Ring, another one where they mimicked the original art, the Elixir of Life. I wonder if J.K. Rowling played some HeroQuest as a youth. Ring of Return, the Wizard's Staff, or the Old Man's Walking Stick if no weapons are allowed. I think I prefer the original version that actually shows a powerful staff and a wizard. This one just looks like a regular staff to me. Next is the Orc's Bane. I think again I prefer the original where it's actually showing it stabbing an orc. Wand of Magic. Another one where they just took the original and redid it. Here's Boren's Armor. There were a couple other cards in the 2021 box that aren't in the original, or they were and I just lost them over the years. And there you have it. That's a comparison of the 1989 Milton Bradley version of HeroQuest with the 2021 version from Avalon Hill. Thank you for watching Board with Paint. I hope this was helpful to you. If you missed it, there's a part 1 to this video where I do a more traditional unboxing of the 2021 Mythic tier, and in that one I go through and look at some of the expansions and additional content that came in that box. I'd appreciate it if you put a like on this video and subscribe. It will really help out the channel if you want to see more content like this. And you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as Bored with Paint. And until next time, I would usually say happy painting, but I guess happy hero questing.